Welcome, traveler. My name is Winkari, and this is The Journey, a World of Warcraft podcast. A cozy stop along the road where we share stories, reflect on the world of Azeroth, and enjoy the game at our own pace. Pull up a chair, warm yourself by the fire, and let's begin. Well, hello, welcome to episode 3 of The Journey. My name is Winkari. I'm recording this on Monday, November 17th, 2025. So happy you are joining me today. In this episode, we will be discussing the starting zones for Death Knights, Goblins, and Worgen. Excited to be talking about those things with you. On my end, in my neck of the woods, weather has finally turned cold where I live in Wisconsin. We even got our first snowfall. Just a little dusting. We usually don't get snow accumulating really until January, February, but I'm a huge winter, huge snow, Christmas guy. On my honeymoon, my wife and I actually went to Banff National Park in Canada during Christmas. We had a private log cabin up in the snow, if that tells you anything about me, but excited to have you with me today. Let's jump into our first segment. Where in the world of Warcraft are we?
Yeah.
Ooh, up, oop, oops, oop, ooh, up, oop, oops, oop. Ooh, up, oop, oops, oop, ooh, up, oop, oop, oop. Where in the world of Warcraft are we?
I'm currently on my mount, flying in the sky, but not high up. Just maybe 3 or 4 feet above a small pool of water. I'm surrounded by luscious green, a lot of foliage, some palm trees. There's a bunch of Kolkar surrounding this pond, kind of like they're on watch. If I look up into the sky, I see a sword, just the silhouette, the outline of a giant sword plunged into the earth. Nearby there is a caravan that's been either broken or attacked. There's another pool of water with a mob in it. Let's fly over there. Gesharahan? Is that how we pronounce it? There's a few turtles also roaming around these 2 bodies of water. And the music might be a giveaway, but I'll give you your final clue that I think should seal the deal. If I turn around and look in front of me, there is a rock face in the shape of a giant skull. Have you figured it out yet? Well, I'm in the continent of Kalimdor. I am in the zone of the Northern Barrens. And specifically, I am in the lush water oasis standing outside the dungeon, the Wailing Caverns. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. If you figured that one out on your own, give yourself a pat on the back. That answers the question, where in the world of Warcraft are we? Let's move on to the Mulligan, the segment of our show that discusses something that we might have overlooked, misspoke on, or just were downright incorrect on in our previous episode.
The past must not be repeated.
In our previous episode, I said that Mexican wrestling was known as lucha cabra. And that is incorrect. It's actually called lucha libre. Apparently lucha cabra is a character from the video game series Skylanders, which I've never even played, so I'm not really sure where I came up with that. I think my brain mixed up lucha libre and chupacabra. You know, the folklorian goat-sucking creature. Obviously. So, mystery solved. Not lucha cabra, but lucha libre. Secondly, I couldn't remember the proper word for describing how our podcast is twice a month, but thanks to Apple Podcast, it reminded me that it's called semi-monthly. So that's what we are, a semi-monthly podcast. Let's move on to the news.
Do you bring news?
There is a new Twitch drop for those of you who watch Twitch. For me, I love having it on in the background if I'm doing something that can distract me a little. If not, I usually just put on something like seasonal on YouTube music-wise. But yeah, if you're a Twitch viewer or Twitch backgrounder like I am, You can get the Violet Sweatsuit Transmog by watching, I believe, 4 hours of WoW, just in the background of someone streaming on Twitch. That goes till December 2nd. There is a new novel, a new World of Warcraft novel. This will actually be the first that I have purchased, and it actually wasn't purchased for me. I was able to get it for free. If I remember correctly, Audible gave me a free trial with a free credit, so I used that to download, or to pre-order rather, the audiobook. So maybe you can check and see if you can get that trial for yourself, but if you just want to purchase it outright, that releases November 18th, which would be tomorrow as of this recording. That novel is a prelude, a preface, a background to the upcoming expansion Midnight, which surrounds, I believe, Turalian, Illyria, and their son Eretor. So if you want to check that out, that is dropping tomorrow, November 18th. That's the new novel, Blood Ties. Next is 11.2.7. That goes live on December 2nd. There's an article about that one on the World of Warcraft website outlining all the different parts. We'll, of course, continue the war within campaign. The big one is housing early access. I'm really excited about that one. There's the new and returning player experiences, new lore walking of the Elves of Kel'Thalas, Pandaren heritage armor's finally here, Tour the Turbulent Timeways, and finally the Brawlers Guild returns December 9th, so that's basically like a week after the 11.2.7 going live. So you have that to look forward to for 11.2.7. Next, I'm hearing and kind of reading conflicting things, but there's potentially a return of the Brutosaur mount to the store. Some are saying it's only in China. That's kind of one of those, let's wait and see. And finally, the big news of the day is Hearthsteel. This is a very big controversy, as they say, over the pond. Hearthsteel is a new virtual currency for WoW. This is going to be used for housing specifically. You purchase this with your real money. And they're telling us the vast majority of housing items are and will continue to be earnable in-game. However, a small fraction is going to be available for purchase from the shop. So this is something that's coming out, Hearthsteel, whether we like it or not. You can buy them for individual purchase, these extra items. Sometimes they said they're going to have sales on bundles, etc. They're telling us the costs are going to be clearly defined. You should be able to obtain an amount that makes sense for the purchases you want to make. And they're really trying to assure us that the UI is going to be straightforward, that it's going to integrate cleanly into the existing Battle.net economy. And just to be clear, it's for housing. They're letting us know they have no plans to use it for trading posts, mounts, transmogs, pets, etc. But here's my issue. You have to buy a bulk. Having played Guild Wars 2, I've experienced this. If you purchase something, or want to purchase something rather, let's say 600 Hearthsteel, but they only sell packs of 800 Hearthsteel, inevitably what happens is you have this leftover money that you didn't really want. And the proof is in the pudding, because if I log into Guild Wars 2 right now, guess what? I have a few gems, which is their currency, just sitting in my account. That's essentially wasted money. It's leftover waste. If you don't use them, you've spent money on something that is essentially useless. And here's the kicker. As of today, unless we are completely misunderstanding this, Blizzard is telling us that we need to buy multiples of each item. For example, if you want a chair for your house that you can only get purchasing Hearthsteel, you don't just buy the skins, so to speak, and then place as many as you want, but they're letting us know that you have to buy one of each. So if you want 4 chairs, you have to buy it 4 times. Let that sink in. That leads us into today's Dear Blizzard. Dear Blizzard, what does our sub money go towards? WoW is a subscription-based MMO that requires us to pay a monthly fee to have access to the game we also pay money to buy in the first place. Let me be clear, I'm okay with a subscription-based model. However, you are teetering into greedy and predatory territory. Other games like Guild Wars 2 are buy-to-play, with no sub, and have cosmetic in-game shops, currency, etc. to offset costs. You, however, have both, and are seemingly finding more and more ways to continually squeeze out an ever-increasing profit. My question to you is, when is enough enough? Where does the line start and end when it comes to your economic decision-making? My understanding is that our sub pays for the service of the game. Server upkeep, updates, full access to most of the game content with some caveats, and ongoing development. It's less about buying a static game and more about paying for continuous access and support, and I understand that. But when you make a Brutosaurus mount that provides a huge convenience that is double the cost of a single expansion, I would argue you've gone too far. When you tell us we need to buy multiples of each item in the housing shop, you've gone too far. From the bottom of my heart, please revisit these types of decisions before you alienate the player base to the point that it shrinks. At the end of the day, your biggest commodity is the players. Focus more on making great content that is enticing, engaging, and just plain fun. That model will bring more people to the game and ultimately drive increased revenue. Sincerely, Winkari. And now let's look at the calendar for the rest of November.
The future is ours to forge.
WoW's 21st anniversary is currently going on until December 7th. I actually didn't really participate in much of this last year for the Big 20, so I'm excited to jump in and see what I missed. But if you want to do that one, you have until December 7th. It is, to my understanding, replicating most of what happened last year right outside the Caverns of Time in Daenerys. And lastly, check out the Pilgrim's Bounty that runs from Sunday, November 23rd through Sunday, November 30th. My understanding is this one is kind of the Thanksgiving-y event of WoW. I'm not sure if I've done this one, to be perfectly honest, so I'm excited to jump in if you want to as well. That's, again, Sunday, November 23rd through Sunday, November 30th. And now let's jump into the main portion of our show, that is our adventures in Azeroth.
As always, we have much to discuss.
So if you remember from last episode, we jumped into Vashj'ir. We are doing Cataclysm content when we're not doing, the endgame content within the War Within. But I realized as I was going to move on to the next sections of Cataclysm that I hadn't done the starting zones of the races part of Cataclysm. And that is, of course, the Goblins and the Worgen. But then I thought to myself, I never did Death Knights either. So a little timeline-y out of order, but I figured I should probably go do this one. So I started a brand new Death Knight, never done this before, and his name was Aeronor.
A hero, that's what you once were. You stood boldly against the shadow and purchased another dawn for the world with your life. But the evil you fought is not so easily banished. The victory you claimed, not so easily held. For now, the specter of death looms above the world yet again, and it has found new champions to bring about its final reign. Knights of darkness, wielding runes of death and destruction, bound by the will of the Lich King. This is the hour of their ascension. This is the hour of your dark rebirth.
I will say, as I started up this character after that intro cinematic, he's just standing there next to the Lich King. And I'm thinking to myself, and maybe other people thought it was really cool and kind of epic, to me it felt really anticlimactic. Like, he's this big deal, right? This big enemy, this kind of larger-than-life character in Wrath of the Lich King, and he's just chilling on the patio, That felt a little weird to me, gotta be perfectly honest. The beginning was a bit slow also. There's not a lot of action and combat. the balance between those two felt a little off. It took a while for it to get started, if you will. That being said, in that kind of slow portion of the beginning of that starting zone, there's a bunch of books. There's lots of lore in that big tower there, which leads us to today's Golden Quill.
Fantastic!
There's a book lying on the ground called Guide to the Side Effects of Reanimation. Here it is. Welcome to the Scourge. Now that you have entered your true service, you may find immense relief in your liberation from various mortal inconveniences. No bothersome sleeping to take up your time anymore, nor any great need for shelter from the elements, and you are even free from the mild irritation of cutting hair and nails. How delightful. However, there are a few almost insignificant details to being undead. Keep an eye on your rotting. Some is all very well to scare your foes, but an arm falling off mid-stab is just embarrassing. Learn to love your stench. Some say foul, we say rar. Avoid living animals, especially dogs. Heed your unintelligibility. Should you misplace your lower jaw, you may be reassigned to a position where your gurgling is not amiss, and few of those hold any prestige. Alcohol is simply not the same. My apologies. A bloodbath a day keeps the living away, although adding bubbles is frowned upon. Avoid pastels, they simply do not work with our coloring. And those pants will no longer make you look fat. I just thought it was some great writing, definitely deserving of today's Golden Quill. Honorable mention will be given to The Death Knights of Acheris and Turning the Other Cheek if you want to go read those ones. I highly recommend it on Wowhead. There was a cool quest at the, third of the way into that starting zone called How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies. Great title. There was this really cool mechanic where you're trying to get information out of these NPCs that you're fighting. So you go and fight them, then eventually they kind of give you information or they don't. And I realized that the mechanic is probably a little broke because I did this for, I would say, well, I take that back. I did it once, and I think the first person I did said the thing I needed, but something glitched and I had to go do it again and abandon it. And it took probably, over 15 minutes of just killing mobs. So I think that's something they need to go back and revisit. I liked how the tide turned, and the women you were ordered to kill as a prisoner, or a woman rather, there's a section where this woman is being held prisoner. And I say that the tide turned because you are essentially ordered to take her life. But right before you do so, she tells you that as a child, she nursed me. And she's telling me to fight against the Lich King's pull. That was very immersive. A great narrative bit. Sadly, you still end up taking her life, which is, but something that made me feel something. And I always like WoW more when I feel something. At the end of that main section, you go by this area called Noxious Glade, where you leave that main zone. And that felt very weird and unfinished to me. It was extremely empty. There's no one really there. You talk to one person and they move you on to another section. It felt very anticlimactic. I'm not sure why they did it that way. And the whole section ends with this battle at Light's Hope Chapel, which was a few glitchy things, and finally it started, and then there's like raining blood, and that's all good and fine. And it's the closest thing I felt to kind of an open world raid. You basically go in this giant battlefield and you fight, and it has numbers at the top, but it was also very confusing to me because at the end it said we lost, but yet the numbers were 9,474 to their 173, and yet we had lost? A little odd. The exposition at the end of that was great though, but personally I was very confused by all the characters, what the backstory of Mograine and his father was. They mentioned that the Lich King knew that, or he knew rather, what was under Light's Hope Chapel. Like, what does that even mean as the player? Like, is that a class hall in Legion? I don't know that. The ending was good, right? It set up Wrath of the Lich King, but it was too bad that other characters won't experience it unless they roll a Death Knight. In other words, if you're not rolling a Death Knight, you won't kind of get this backstory, and I think that is too bad. That's probably where maybe one of those lore-keeping quests would serve it well. Morgraine said that he plunged the Ashbringer into his own heart to free his father's cursed soul, his last memory as a free man. What does that mean? I don't know. There was a nice touch when you finish all that up, you go back to Stormwind, you talk to Anduin, and there's guards obviously in the castle there, and they're throwing rotten bananas, apples, they're spitting on you as you walk by as this Death Knight. Nice little touch. Overall, the Death Knight starting zone, it was a nice introduction to Death Knights and how they came to turn against the Lich King when they saw that they were being used by him and nothing more, kind of pawns. That was nice. But overall, I was pretty disappointed. I do have one final question. Would the story have been different if I played as a Horde character? Because the one I rolled was Alliance. That's just a question I have. Overall verdict, Death Knight starting zone, I would give a grade of a C. After completing the Death Knight starting zone, I finally went back to Cataclysm and I rolled a Goblin.
The wily, cunning goblins of Kazan have lived in relative peace for generations. Though some of their race sided with the marauding orcs during the Second War, most goblins have remained neutral throughout the various conflicts between the Alliance and Horde. Ruled over by corrupt yet highly affluent trade princes, the goblins created a virtual paradise for themselves throughout the islands of the South Seas. Their ingenious feats of engineering and vast trade fleets helped make their island capital of Kazan one of the great technological wonders of the world. But now, as the elements themselves rise up in anger across the world, the goblins' mechanical paradise will be put to the test. For very soon, fate will force them to choose sides in a conflict that will shape the very history of the world.
My Goblin's name was Faden. Really liked that name that I came up with. And to be honest, I didn't think I would like the Goblins or the Goblin starting zone half as much as I ended up liking it. I really loved the beginning where you ride around in a car, the radio's playing in the background. It's much better at slower speeds and open roads compared to the Undermine experience in War Within. It actually really reminded me of the first time I played Grand Theft Auto. In, I believe it's Vice City. You listen to that 80s music driving around. Had a really cool vibe to it. There's a quest where you play a foot bomb instead of football game, and you kick this field goal, and as you do so, Deathwing shows up in the background, kind of starting this big kind of volcanic event. And I just thought that was a really great way to tell an engaging and visual narrative. I also like that you get to see Gallywix, which gives you some really good context for the Undermine. There's a really cool quest in that first section called Waltz Right In, with some great real-world references. You go to essentially go get these high commodity items like the Goblin Lisa instead of the Mona Lisa. And then Maldi's Falcon, which I assume most people don't understand this reference as a theater major in my undergrad and then an actor. Film, movie, all that stuff is very much in my background. And this is a reference to an old film, an old black and white called The Maltese Falcon with Humphrey Bogart. It's kind of this noir, adventure-y film called The Maltese Falcon. I just thought that was a nice little touch. I love that when you leave the first island there's this great cinematic of you becoming shipwrecked. Always a big fan of cinematics. More, please. As you get washed up onto the shore from the sea, there's a quest where you go into a cavern that gives you some great lore background on Kajamite and the goblins. It says this specifically, Kajamite. You know, the stuff that legend holds helped the entire goblin race to evolve into the ultimate masters of alchemy and engineering. It's the stuff that helped us to overthrow our jungle troll oppressors, to take control of Kazan. May she rest in peace, and is the most valuable ore in all of existence. hey, you don't think that it's having any effect on those monkeys, do you? That was great, right? I learned that apparently this stuff helped the goblin race evolve into what they do today, and it helped them overthrow their troll oppressors, as it said. Great lore nuggets. As you go into that cave, you come across this race called pygmies, and to my knowledge and my memory, I don't think I've ever come across pygmies in WoW. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that race anywhere else in the game? I don't know. There's a great quest later on called Dark Tan Helmet, or at least that's the character's name, and if you don't know this reference, this is from Spaceballs with Rick Moranis, where he's Dark Helmet instead of Darth Vader. Nice little nod there. I really loved when the volcano erupted itself. I loved how it changed the environment, the sky effects, the geography, and then the quests that followed that on the beach were also really enjoyable. You essentially go into this kind of Snoopy World War, jet fighter quest where you're trying to shoot down enemy fighters in your plane. That was really enjoyable. There's also a morale boost quest, which is really fun. You go into the mines, and you're essentially trying to give the workers Kaja-Cola to come up with these fantastical ideas that are super random. Definitely recommend that you check that quest out. Well, I think you'll kind of have to, but check the zone overall out. Really enjoyed it. I love the starting zone. I liked that it was a contained narrative with a clear beginning, middle, and end, kind of that 3-act structure, and legitimately felt like you were on an adventure that's unfolding before your eyes, which is my favorite type of questing. Really enjoyed it. My grade for the Goblin starting zone is an A. Next, I moved on to roll a Worgen, but before I actually entered the cinematic, the starting zone specifically, it has one of the best starting zone screens I've ever seen. If you haven't seen this, go roll one, just look. You don't even have to enter the game. It's got this castle-type building in the background. There's a full moon up in the sky. There's a lantern and roses in the foreground with this winding path leading up to the building and rain falling. Very evocative, very immersive, and I hadn't even entered the game. However, it is a little awkward that it shows your Worgen on this starting scene, or starting screen rather, but when you actually enter the game, you're just a regular human. So, in some ways, I don't know if immersion breaking is the word, but there's a inconsistency there where you're not a Worgen, you're just a human because it's part of that narrative. So that aside, let's check out the intro.
Led by their indomitable king, Ben Greymane, the proud citizens of Gilneas once stood with the Alliance against the vile orcish horde that sought to conquer all of Lordaeron. Gilneas survived, but in the chaotic years following the Second War, the mighty kingdom drew ever inward. Distrustful of their former allies, the Gilneans erected a mighty wall at the borders of their land, closing off their nation and their hearts from an ever-darkening world. Now, many years later, as the seemingly unstoppable undead scourge marches across Lordaeron, human civilization once again teeters on the brink of destruction. As war and terror close in all around them, the citizens of Gilneas are faced with one terrible truth. Their mighty wall cannot hold back the dead for much longer. And worse, rumors of a new threat have arisen within the kingdom's borders, of feral nightmare creatures that walk upright as men, but hunt and howl as wolves.
I rolled my Worgen named Karaya, and right away really enjoyed the music with the harpsichord. It really immersed me into the setting. It was nice interacting with the environment when you're evacuating townspeople from their homes, but again, a little immersion breaking because you open these doors to their homes to let them run out, and then the inside of the home, the interior, is just this small, empty square with nothing in it. I mean, all they had to do was throw like a bed and some chairs in there, but missed opportunity, I digress. I really liked later on that you're fighting on the rooftop of this prison in the rain. Worgen are jumping from rooftop to fight us. Very cinematic, kind of feels like you're in this action-y, brooding film. Early on, you go to talk to someone in the artillery hideaway, and then you're bit by a Worgen, and then everything happens so fast. I would have liked to have all this stuff go down slower to have more of a dramatic effect, because it just kind of rushes that section of the narrative and just felt a little muddled and confused. You get thrown into more action where you do quests where you push that action button. You're riding on a horse. There's artillery fire as well. I just thought that was a little too simple, a little too easy. I would have liked to see some more organic combat early on, at the very beginning, instead of relying too much on those set pieces to tell the narrative. Once inside the chapel, there's this really awesome cutscene. But I was confused by what happened, like what that transition was when it was all said and done, because you come out of the cutscene and you're a Worgen, and then I'm literally thinking, like, was I the Worgen in the cutscene? I had to watch the cutscene a second time on YouTube just to fully understand what went down, to be perfectly honest. And that really shows that the video or gameplay doesn't really explain it well enough to begin with if you have to do that. That's my 2 cents. At level 10, I was given the ability to turn back into a human automatically after leaving combat, which is called Calm the Wolf, which is nice, but they don't really introduce a story-driven reason why you're able to do this, at least until later on. I really like that you get this ability called Running Wild, which puts you on to all 4 like a beast, and then you can go run faster. Good for role-playing, I'm sure. The animation is really great, but it's not an instant cast. It's essentially kind of like a mount cast. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, if you're a Worgen and you're going to go run on all 4s in real life, you wouldn't have... Like, that would be instant, right? Just saying. It was really cool to see the terrain shift when part of the island sunk into the sea from an earthquake. Kind of similar to the Goblin starting zone. Very immersive. Really like when they do stuff like that. It's telling a story not just with words, not just with gameplay, but with the geography. Always a fan with that. And that leads us now to our quest that was the best.
I am having the best time.
Our best quest for this episode is called Grandma's Lost It All Right. You're essentially telling the villagers to evacuate. You're going to Grandma Wall specifically to tell her to vacate her home because the impending earth is collapsing, right? All around her due to the earthquakes. And she tells you that she won't leave without her favorite linen-wrapped book. So you go retrieve it, and the description reads, "This book appears to be a racy romance novel. The cover reveals a pastoral scene involving a muscular blonde man and a young woman wearing a tight bodice." Kind of cliche, but a little funny. So I really loved her little narrative here, but in the middle of it, I noticed that if you go into her home and you look on the table, or even just in the home itself first, there's a lot of small touches that really bring you into the environment. There's lacy pillows on the bed, carpets on the floor, this weaving loom in the background, baked goods on the table, including 2 gingerbread men. I think one is smiling and then one is frowning, and its arm is torn off. I mean, just a great small touch to bring you into the game. If you want to see that picture, I put it on our Twitter. Just look, the Journey WoW Pod on Twitter. You can see our image there. Love that little touch. She says she won't leave without her good clothes next, which you say to them, or which you say in the game, you're not quite sure, but this looks identical to what she is wearing as you're grabbing it. And then her third request is that you rescue her orange tabby cat, Chance. So you go and find her cat out in the field, and you do so. Lucius the Cruel shows up saying that it was bait, ha ha ha, and goes to attack. But then Grandma shows up, turns into a Worgen, and fights, saying, "You do not mess with my kitty, you son of a mongrel." Just totally on theme. You get an orange blanket as a cape for a reward. Granny gives you an orange blanket that you can use as a cape for your reward. What a fun quest. That's Grandma's Lost It All Right, and that is today's quest that was the best. Moving on, I loved the sweeping set piece of Greymane Manor. That's the one in the starting screen in the background that you now learn is Greymane Manor. And as you ride up with the horse on the hill for the first time, just a great set piece. Very immersive. I also noticed that when you enter the manor and you open the map, it actually shows up as an interior map. Kind of like it's a dungeon. And I don't know if that was like a scrapped thing or not, but it did have me wondering, like, why did they go through the effort to make a map like that for just a building you go in and out of and then never again? Just wondering. I enjoy that you take a stagecoach ride away from the manor, with the geography changing yet again as more of the land is being swallowed by the sea. Thought that was great. And then, of course, I had to test it out. You get shut out from this giant gate as you leave that section of the area, and I wanted to see if I could get there. And sure enough, I was able to jump around the gate and jump into that sunken area and swim around it. It's just cool to kind of see that I could. Later on, I got my second tamed pet. I rolled a hunter for this one. And I realized that my two pets were a fox and a hound. Completely by accident. This, of course, made me a walking Disney movie advertisement. If you want to see that picture, also posted on our Twitter at The Journey WoWPod. I loved finding out that the lore backstory was in this section for the curse specifically of the Worgen. One of the quests explains. It says, "What you know as the curse began as a heresy among your brethren," or our brethren, rather. "Faced with a losing battle against demonic forces, the druids of the pack eschewed the balance they were sworn to and allowed the beast to overtake them. They were banished to the Emerald Dream, where they live in eternal slumber under a tree identical to this one, but not before their curse spread to others." Love that they give you that background of, like, how the heck did we get here, right? After you get a scythe specifically in this quest, it gives you control over your two forms, and now you can actually use that two forms ability that you were given levels earlier. So that's probably just a level inconsistency thing, but I really like that one. That animation's really good of being able to switch back from human to Worgen. Bravo, Blizzard. Love the animation to that. Later, I was doing a quest where you are assassinating two traders, essentially, and there's a bunch of horses sitting out, and I thought, well, what the heck, let me see if I can tame them. And I was. And maybe it's just me, but, like, I guess I don't see horses as fighting creatures. Like, a dog is a domestic creature in some ways, but it can fight. And I just thought that was a little weird. Of course, I used it, but am I the only one that thinks it's a little weird that you can tame horses as a hunter pet? I don't know, that's just me. I enjoyed the idea later on that you are taking back Gilneas, but the entire experience was pretty clunky and disorganized. It really seems like it was more designed for the launch of an expansion with multiple players doing it at once. In other words, when this came out, it probably was good and fine, but me doing it solo was really weird. It took a while to take down the first mini-boss. You later fight Sylvanas, but it was really short. I mean, it was cool, but extremely short. I mean, we're just talking a matter of seconds. And then Greymane's son takes an arrow for his father, which was, I think, glitched because it didn't show you what really happened in terms of, like, the death. It all moved really fast, and for such a high-stakes moment, they need to go back and revisit that one. There's a quest later where you take a hidden underground tunnel to get outside the city and use a torch to keep the rats and maggots away, which was cool, but you're just spamming this button, literally going, because if you don't, they literally come and kill you. That being said, it was cool to see the mummied bodies and remains around you. I like that these connecting points show the interconnectedness of the world at large, and one of the things I generally love about WoW specifically over some of these other MMOs, which I've talked about before, is that you don't have loading screens. You don't have instances for tons and tons of content like you do in other MMOs. Just a big fan of that. Later you take over a war machine, you drive and shoot down enemies on the battlefield, which was a nice change of pace, but again, very minimalist, not really much on that field, not really that exciting, and the battlefield was just pretty bland and bare. That being said, it followed itself up with a great battle, where you fly up to the invading horde Zeppelin, you're planting explosives, you fight a boss ogre, and then you fly off as the entire thing explodes in the background like an 80s B flick. Very cinematic, really enjoyed that one. And it wraps up where you head back to Darnassus in the end. It's cool to learn that the oak tree that's there specifically in Darnassus was grown. It was grown through the aid of the druids from a seed that was taken back on Gilneas. And it serves as a reminder that their curse is also their blessing. I thought that was a nice little touch. It wraps up finally with Tyrande and Malfurion coming to welcome us, telling us to come to Lordnell to help, and that really closes out the Worgen starting experience at large. But that one was a little anticlimactic. That one, it was kind of meh. So overall, I love the gothic aesthetic of Gilneas, the rain, the darkness, the music. I enjoyed the discovery of kind of what's next as you venture out from the city, how the geography changed with the earthquakes and flooding. However, the first half of the starting zone is the part that felt really full and well thought out. It's really the second half of the starting zone of the Worgen that felt to me more rushed. Not as much going on, not as much really designed in those big kind of bland, vast areas. But it did have a nice payoff with that final ship battle. Overall, I would give the grade of the Worgen starting zone a B. Lastly, before we wrap up, I checked out the Moonkin Festival. Never done this one before. You spend time observing the Moonkin hatchlings, learning to dance, using moonfire, sleeping. You give some berries to your own hatchling. They duplicate. You get some more items. You combine them. You heal this guy that's down in the barrow. And then it gives you the ability to find and kill this boss there. So, a little confusing, to be honest. They don't really give you a quest to follow. You just have to, I guess, figure it out or go on Wowhead, learning as you go. But I will say, when I went to fight this boss, Zavinox, really difficult. He uses this mirror image ability where you fight like 3 or 4 of him, and it's just darn near impossible to solo him. And I think mine was, if I remember correctly, I did this one with a hunter. Maybe if I had my paladin, I could have done it. But eventually I was able to thankfully find someone that helps me to help me take him down. But as he switched into his mirror image form, 2 other Horde characters showed up and started attacking us. Like, no joke. So I'm finally able to fight this guy and the Horde shows up. But joke's on them because we ended up beating the boss and I killed one of the Horde as the other flew away. So that wrapped it up kind of nicely. The boss drops this Beanie Boomy, but it's a one-time item, like a one-time use item that just essentially keeps the Moonkin hatchlings that you have around longer. And that's it. Like, a very lackluster reward for all that work in my mind. This is a mini holiday, a micro holiday, so I don't want the bar to be too high, but to be honest, there wasn't much explanation what to do, what the holiday was really kind of for, understanding the story behind it. My overall grade is a D. As we close out the show, I want to let you know that we got our first review, and I'm really excited to bring that one to you.
Speak.
This review is from Apple Podcasts. It comes to us from Wee Christie. And I have a question for you if you're listening. Is this kind of like the genie in Aladdin when he's like, should I call you Al or should I call you Din or should I call you Laddie? Like, here, boy, here, Laddie. Like, are you a weak wristy? Like, are you very weak? Or are you a wee crusty? Not to be confused with crusty. I'm going to go with wee Christie. Are you Irish? Are you Scottish? I need to know, but I digress. Here's our review. Great WoW podcast, 5 stars. Relaxing, informative, and a great listen while I play WoW. Really appreciate that review. If you guys could do that as well for me, I'd really appreciate it. It helps the discovery of the show. And with that, our time together comes to a close. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate. Make sure you listen all the way through to the end of our episode today for more bloopers. And as a reminder, we are a semi-monthly podcast, so you can expect 2 episodes a month, one at the beginning of each month and then one a couple weeks later. If you like what you hear, like I said earlier, and you want to keep traveling with me, be sure to follow The Journey wherever you listen, and rate and review if you could. It goes a long way, again, for our discoverability.
Tell others of me.
And if you write a review, as you just heard, I'll even read it on the show. You can also find me on Twitter and YouTube at The Journey WoW Pod, and if you want to provide any feedback or ask a question for me to answer on air, you can email me at thejourneywowpod@gmail.com. Special thanks to Blizzard for our in-game music and sound, and to you for listening. I'll see you next time when the journey continues. Well, hello there. Happy... Well, hello. Hi. Oh, boy. My Spanish-speaking wife should correct me on this one. Or she should have, rather. I shouldn't say that. I'm forgetting her name. What's the mom's name? I was going to say Valera. Vanessa? Illyria. Oh, my gosh. How did I forget Illyria? And next, finally, the